What is up, everyone? Prometheus here. Today I'd like to talk about something that I've been planning on for a long time. This list is going to be our biggest list and biggest video we have made thus far. Our top 30 greatest movies of all time. And this is not subjective. This isn't my personal top 30 of all time. This is a completely critical, objective, and definitive list. I have been working on this for 2 years before I even started this channel with Mayor Dragon. I have put together even a top 100, but that was when I was a bit younger and I didn't have a stronger critical mindset. This one is going to be completely critical, completely objective. What are objectively the greatest movies of all time? What are critically the greatest of all time? And I will also be having influence on the film industry as a whole, and their significance factor into this as well. But this is a completely objective list. I've been working on it for 2 years now, and I've watched dozens, maybe even over 100 films that are considered the greatest of all time, and I've picked out 30 that display filmmaking to the absolute highest degree and overall are objectively better than all the others. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing. Film is more than just a form of entertainment. It's an art style, a lifestyle, something in which the directors, the actors, the writers, the designers, and all the other workers on the project pour in so much effort and dedication and work together and could contribute something, whether it be big or small, to the project to make it the best it can be. Or in some cases with bad movies, they either don't put in effort at all, or they have good intention, they have good effort, but it doesn't end up doing well in the end. Today we're going to be looking at those masterpieces, the ones that have so much effort and work put into it, so much genius filmmaking and directing skills from all the actors, directors, and writers to put them above all other films. This is the top 30 films of all time, definitive, objective, and critical. Let's get to number 30. Okay, at number 30 is Singing in the Rain, another classic musical, probably the greatest musical of all time. This film isn't trying to be some smart script, like, it's not trying to be a smart plot, trying to deliver a big message on anything. It's not trying to be some dark film or anything. It's not trying to be a film noir of that era or anything. This film is different from other films on this, in which it's not trying to really have any conflict or anything. It's not trying to have any dark undertones or messages. It's just a fun, happy film. This is such a joyous and charming film. The music is fantastic. It's the best musical ever made. What can I say? It's fantastic. It absolutely deserves its 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes. It's fantastic. The music plays a strong role in making this film such a charming one. There's that great sequence where the guy sings in the rain. Of course, it's Singing in the Rain. And there's a bunch of other great songs. The Hollywood setting, it's fun. The characters are fun. The film's just really happy. If you're in a bad mood, put this film on. And yeah, this is probably one of the only films on this list that is just pure joy. That's just trying to be a pure, fun, charming, and enjoyable film. And for that, it's fantastic. And yeah, even then, it's still a smart plot, good acting. It's critically still a great film, despite not being nothing more than... Well, it's more than a film. It's a fun, charming experience. I've repeated myself on that multiple times, but yeah, the music's great, the film is fun, it makes you happy, and when a film gets that much emotion out of you, you know it's great. Yeah, so this is probably one of the only films like that on this list, other than our next pick at number 29. At number 29 is yet another classic, probably the oldest film on this list, and the first color film, one of the most influential and iconic films of all time, The Wizard of Oz, released all the way back in 1939, and probably one of the only sharing that release year with another film on this list, which we will get to soon. So like Singing in the Rain, Wizard of Oz is just another charming, fun, and joyous film with great music. It's a musical in a sense. It and Singing in the Rain are the best musicals cinema has to offer. And it's iconic. The acting's iconic. The characters are iconic. So many iconic scenes. It brought color to cinema. It made a large impact on the industry. Bringing color to cinema is nothing to scoff at. It is such a big innovation this film was. Now there is some darker backstory behind this film and how the director treated some of the actors, and how the actor of Dorothy eventually died due to the conditions and terms put on her to play this character. And there's the witch being set on fire, the makeup being used on the Tin Man being poisonous, and of course the asbestos snow. But then again, the film industry, as much as I see it as a artistic medium, its own world of art, the film industry is far from perfect. It has its own scandals and dangerous men and dangerous directors. A lot of bad things have happened in the film industry. It's not perfect by any means. Like, look at Alfred Hitchcock, one of the greatest directors of all time, but he was a terrible man in real life. The actor in The Birds got lied to and had real birds released on her, tearing up her skin. But then that's has nothing to do with Wizard of Oz. What I'm saying is that despite the dark production behind this film and how the film industry in general can be pretty terrible at times, we still got an absolute classic that is great for kids and adults to enjoy. Yet another joyous film, not trying to have too much of a message other than there's no place like home. But then again, who doesn't know that line? So yeah, that's Wizard of Oz. Let's get on to number 28. At number 28 is another recent film. Probably one of the more recent films on this list is Triple R. Now, if I were to tell you that there is a movie that combines musical, drama, bromance, adventure, action, musical, I think I said musical twice already, but that's beyond the point. So imagine if I told you that it combines all those genres and multiple tones such as funny, emotional, epic, and charming, and all those other things. You'd think, oh, that film's probably a mess. It's probably absurd. And yeah, this film is absurd, but it is by no means a mess. It is fantastic. It's an absurd masterpiece of a film. It manages to mesh together so many different genres, action, musical, and it all works so well. And the central story behind it's actually also really great. The characters are great. They go through great growth and development. Their motives are interesting. And it all comes together in the end. It has some action scenes that put most modern blockbuster action movies to shame. Even classic ones like Terminator 2, which is an honorable mention for this list. Like, it puts so many action films to absolute shame. Triple R is one of the most impressive movies I've seen this century, maybe even of all time. Fantastic film. It should have won Best Picture. Everything Everywhere All at Once is a great film, but Triple R is phenomenal. It may seem messy, but once you see through the messy concept of that this film is, and you actually get to watching it, you will see that as absurd as it's in the end a masterpiece of a film that manages to mix together so many different genres, do it so well, with so many great scenes, and just, I love this film. It is fantastic, and I have no problem calling it one of the greatest films of all time, even critically. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. If this was a subjective list, it would be a lot higher, but even objectively, it's phenomenal. Let's get on to number 27, I believe. Okay, at number 27 is our first animated film on this list. Probably the most iconic anime movie of all time, Spirited Away. You probably shouldn't be surprised that this is on this list. It is not only one of the greatest animated films of all time, magnum opus of the legendary director Hayao Miyazaki and the Studio Ghibli as a whole. It's unsurprising that it's on this list. A fantastic, ethereal experience that words fail me to describe how great this animated film is. The animation's fantastic. It holds up really well. It's ethereal. It is beautiful. The character growth here is great. It has so many great scenes, characters, and designs, and the spirit world is so magical. The film is magic. It's more than a film, it is a piece of moving art. Now, on my top 10 animated films of all time, I actually had Spirited Away at number 3, with Kaguya at number 2, and Princess Mononoke at 1, but I did some evaluation, and Spirited Away does kind of nudge out Princess Mononoke in some aspects, so yeah, it's here on this list. Princess Mononoke is my favorite, and I like it better than Spirited Away, but it even then, this is not subjective, this is objective, and objectively, Spirited Away is Miyazaki's masterpiece. Let's get on to number 26 then, shall we? At number 26 is Whiplash, and man, how do I describe this film? Terrence Fletcher is the most terrifying movie villain I have seen outside of Amon Goeth from Schindler's List. And he scares me. He is scarier than most horror movie villains. Like, you took some of the most iconic horror movie villains of all time, like, let's say Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, and Michael Myers. You put them in a music class with this guy, and after like a few hours, they'll come out traumatized. Freddy Krueger will be the one having nightmares if he was taught by this guy, because Terrence Fletcher is an fantastic villain. And he's just one aspect of a fantastic movie. Whiplash is perfection. The film's so realistic. The struggle of the main character is believable. It is so real. His dynamic between the cruelty of his music teacher is like, it seems monstrous at times, but once you hear kind of the motives behind it, yeah, it's not justified, but you can definitely see the point of view from Terrence Fletcher. And even the main character, even the main character, Andrew, he's a great character as well. Like, yeah, sure, Fletcher's still the best character in the film, but his struggle, his development, him going mad with this teacher is believable. It is terrifying to see, and that finale is absolutely phenomenal. Whiplash is scarier than most horror movies, and it's not even a horror film. It accomplishes everything a film should in under 2 hours, because your film doesn't need to be super long to be great. And while I'm more used to longer films, and I went to Whiplash thinking that its shorter runtime of only an hour 46 minutes could make it that maybe the pacing, because pacing could hinder sometimes. Like, usually films with the runtime under an hour 50, let's say, could have a few pacing issues, though that's stupid because there are short films that are perfectly paced. But I don't know, I'm more used to long films. But yeah, this film is paced perfectly. The music in it's great. There are so many tense scenes. The character growth is great. It's realistic. It is critically a fantastic film. I love it. And yeah, it's fantastic. It's Whiplash. If you watch it, you'll see what I mean, because honestly, words can't really describe this one. It's tense. It's intense. It's Whiplash. On to number 25, shall we? Okay, at number 25 is Ben-Hur, a film that reminds me that they don't make them like this anymore. Like, this film is enormous. The sets are large, the scenes, the practical effects are effective and impressive. It is fantastic. It has aged so well. I can't believe they were able to accomplish this when they were in the earlier days of cinema. Yet they did. And these days, people don't have the guts to make films like this. You can never make a film like this again, because people don't have the dedication. Stuff is becoming more expensive. People are just going to use CGI like they did. They did make a remake of Ben-Hur a few years ago, 2016, I think, and it was terrible, which shows that classic cinema before the 21st century will always be the pinnacle of cinema as a whole. I don't care whatever comes next century or later this century, nothing can top the absolute grandeur, dedication put into filmmaking all the way back in this era, specifically the 50s and 60s. That's my favorite filmmaking era. And Ben-Hur is a great example of how People back then put in so much dedication. These days, yeah, people still put in so much dedication into films. But are people willing to build an entire coliseum and racetrack for a film set with horses? Are actors willing to learn how to do actual chariot racing rather than, let's say, doing CGI horse racing? No, they're not. That's why filmmaking of this era will never be beaten, and Ben-Hur is a great example of that. It is a fantastic. It's an epic. It is It's magical. Like, well, I shouldn't say magical because the only magic in this movie is Jesus. But yeah, this is a fantastic movie. I keep on saying fantastic. I need to find other words. But yeah, this film deserved its best picture. This film was the first film to ever win 11 Oscars. It's tied with Return of the King and Titanic as the highest awarded films of all time, and it deserves that because this is absolute filmmaking at its finest. And this is only number 25. This is only going to get better from here. So let's move on to number 24, shall we? At number 24 is No Country for Old Men. Now, despite what I mentioned in the last section where I said that filmmaking today can never compete with filmmaking back then, despite that, there are still some films today that are among some of the greatest of all time. Let's talk about No Country for Old Men. Released in 2007, a great year for filmmaking. It is based off Cormac McCarthy's novel, and he's known for making dark novels, and this one was one of his darkest. Like, nowhere near Blood Meridian, but still dark. Now, let's just get this out of the way. Anton Chigurh is an absolutely terrifying villain. Like, this isn't really a horror film, more of like a thriller, but even then, Anton Chigurh makes this into a horror film. Like, he is terrifying. He is a realistic psychopath, and the game of cat and mouse played in this movie is fantastic. I keep on saying fantastic. I gotta find other words, but yeah, it's No Country for Old Men. I think you've heard of it. It's great, and the upcoming and like an adaptation of Blood Meridian could be the best Cormac McCarthy adaptation, but that doesn't exist yet. And if it does, and if it ends up being fantastic, who knows? I could redo this list. Anyways, yeah, that's No Country for Old Men. Let's get on to number 23, shall we? At number 23 is yet another historical epic of the 1950s-60s era, my favorite era, Spartacus. Now, this is one of Stanley Kubrick's lesser renowned films. I mean, yeah, it's still critically great. Look at that score, but what I mean by that is that Stanley Kubrick, I think they said disowned this film or something, because people say it doesn't live up to his standards, but I think it 100%, from a critical point of view, this is still fantastic, even though it didn't really live up to his critical standards or whatever. This is Stanley Kubrick's greatest achievement. Now, I'd say it's his second best film. His number one best we'll get to later on this list, but it is his greatest achievement because it is his grandest, most impressive, and probably the one that they put the most work in, because those battle scenes, those sets and everything are absolutely enormous. This film, like Ben-Hur, is an example of how people back then people back then had the guts to be able to put together these large historical epics, and they were able to do it so well. Yeah, Stanley Kubrick, I don't understand why he disowned this film or whatever, because this is one of his greatest, his second greatest. We'll get to his number one greatest later. It's pretty obvious which one this is, but from a critical point of view, this is still fantastic. I cannot stress that enough. Like, I don't understand why Kubrick let go of this film in the first place. Honestly, I'd say this is one of his more underrated films, since I don't really see this ranked as high on lists of his best films, because objectively, it's one of his greatest. Like, critically, like, personally, it's not really one of my favorite films, actually. I'm not really into this film as much as the other Kubrick films. It's not even one of my favorite films of all time, but critically and objectively, it is fantastic. I cannot just that stress that enough. I cannot like I will fight to no end to make sure that this film gets the praise that it deserves. It's not my favorite, but from a critical point of view, it's one of the best. Let's get on to number 22. At number 22 is The Social Network. Now, you'd probably think that a film about Facebook would be nothing phenomenal, but a film about the rise of Mark Zuckerberg, the Android man himself. You'd think that, oh, it's probably fine, but I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece. Then you actually watch a film about Mark Zuckerberg, and it ends up being one of the best films you have ever seen, because I went into The Social Network thinking, oh, it's probably going to be good, but I don't think a film about Facebook would be on the same level as something like, I don't know, Lord of the Rings, per se. And yet The Social Network ends up being one of the best films I've ever seen. It is genius. It is fantastic. It represents everything great about modern filmmaking, because filmmaking is still alive and well despite some of the problems with the modern day industry. And yeah, the performances are some of the best acting I've seen in movies. It realistically portrays the rise of Facebook. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but whatever. Probably is, because it seems pretty realistic. And yeah, it has a dark, you wouldn't think that a film about Facebook would be that engaging. But then again, Facebook itself is pretty addicting. I use it sometimes. And the movie is absolutely engaging. Fantastic. I cannot praise this enough. I have said fantastic so much. I gotta use a different word. Amazing. Why not? It's genius. It's amazing. And it's one of the best films of all time, of the century. Like, if you've seen it, you know why it's this high up on this list. Okay, let's get on to number 21. At number 21 is Gone with the Wind. Let me cut away for a second and do something quick. Sorry for that quick delay. I had to do something quick. Gone with the Wind. Yet another iconic film. Released back in 1939. It, along with Wizard of Oz, are the oldest films on this list. And they are also some of the best. Gone with the Wind is one of the earlier historical epics. And man, is it fantastic. It is absolutely... It's phenomenal. It captures that classic filmmaking, that vibe of the old 1930s and 40s filmmaking so well. And it has everything. Romance, epic. I think it's mostly just romance, whatever. I haven't seen it in a few weeks, but yeah, it's fantastic. I personally don't really like it too much. I wouldn't rewatch it again. Again, this is completely objective. Some of these films I don't really like that much, like Gone with the Wind. I don't really like it personally too much. It's not really my thing, but critically it is fantastic, so don't be surprised it's on this list. Anyway, let's get into the top 20, shall we? At number 20, kicking off our top 20, is probably the most recent film on this list, and undoubtedly I need to script these. Undoubtedly the best film of the year. No other film this year coming out could top it. Imagine if Sonic 3 ends up being Best Picture. Whatever. Dune Part 2 is winning Best Picture. It has it in the bag. Unless The Brutalist is as good as people are saying it is. But anyways, yeah, Dune Part 2 is phenomenal. It is entrancing, magical. The visual style is fantastic. My favorite part of it, though, is the characters. Paul Atreides is fantastic in this film. Honestly, whenever I look at Timothée Chalamet's face, I just see Paul Atreides. Honestly, this is fantastic. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. If it was my top 30 favorite films of all time, this would be at number 3. But this is subjective and objective, and there are some films that are better than Dune Part 2, but that does nothing that takes away nothing from Dune Part 2, the absolute pinnacle of modern day sci-fi, the best modern sci-fi movie of all time, and one of the 3 greatest sci-fi movies of all time. We'll get to the greatest later, because there is one classic. I'm sure you probably know which one that is, but yeah, we'll get to that one later in the video. But just know, if you haven't seen Dune Part 2, you are committing blasphemy. You must witness the rise of the Muad'Dib, and yeah, I'm a Dune super fan, and Even as a critic, this film is phenomenal. Denis Villeneuve is my favorite live-action director, and this is his masterpiece. Let's move on to number 19. Come on, you shouldn't be surprised that this is on the list. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is an absolute classic. It is an awesome Western movie. Clint Eastwood's most iconic movie, the best film in the Dollars trilogy. It is a prequel to the two other films in the trilogy, and it's fantastic. That standoff scene is one of the best dialogueless scenes I've ever seen. The acting's great, the character work is great. This is, in fact, one of the greatest of all time. What can I say? Honestly, don't really... people have praised this movie to no end, and I don't really know what else I can add to it. It's amazing. It's awesome. It captures that Western style so well, and it is easily the most iconic Western movie of all time. Honestly, it almost makes me miss the cowboy era, even though I wasn't alive back then. But then again, the modern day we live in is worse. So, I shouldn't be complaining. Okay, let's move on to number 18. At number 19? Number 18, I mean. At number 18, we have Apocalypse Now. It was directed by Francis Ford Coppola. You shouldn't be surprised that it's on here. It's one of the greatest war movies of all time. It is absolutely horrifying. It's brutal. It has so many great lines, great scenes. Marlon Brando appears in this film. You'd usually think of him as Vito Corleone from The Godfather, which we will get to soon. And he appears in this, and he's great. Not as good as he is in The Godfather, still fantastic, but his performance, although brief, is fantastic. All the performances are fantastic, and this film is a bloodbath. It is brutal, it is dark, and it's Apocalypse Now. It is one of Francis Ford Coppola's greatest movies of all time. You shouldn't be surprised that it's on here. It is fantastic. Jeez, I keep saying fantastic. Okay, let's move on to number 17. At number 17 is There Will Be Blood, a film that teaches you the danger of wanting to go get oil. I should have worded that better, but it's basically, don't get too greedy with the oil. This is a film that the United States government should watch. This is what happens to you when you get too obsessed with oil, with mining oil, because the oil boom created some great conflicts, and the characters in this film, they descend into madness. The main character of the film descends into madness. Daniel Day-Lewis kills it as the main character of this film. It is fantastic. It's There Will Be Blood. One of the best films of the modern day. I'm not discrediting modern day filmmaking by saying it's nowhere near the heights as modern as the classic film era, but even then, I'm not discrediting it. It's still fantastic. There's great movies, and this is a great standout, one of the best films of the century of all time. It's There Will Be Blood. Don't go mine oil. It is, oil does, moral of the story, oil does bad things to you. That's a lesson the United States should learn. Anyways, let's move on to number 16. At number 17 is the greatest animated movie of all time, and it's not even close. The Tale of the Princess Kaguya. It's perfection. No, I don't think words can really describe it. More so than Spirited Away, even. It's better than Spirited Away. If it's better than Spirited Away, then it's probably one of the best movies ever. And for that film, it's true. Now, it's not my favorite animated movie, but it's the best one I've seen. And I don't really have any words to describe it. It's phenomenal. It's ethereal. It's like Spirited Away. It's magical. It's emotional. It's sad. It's the tale of Princess Kaguya. Isao Takahata went out with a bang. And it's so sad that he died when he did, because it's sad. And this film is sad. It's fantastic. Let's move on to number 15 then. At number 15 is Seven Samurai, the greatest Japanese movie of all time and the greatest movie from the greatest director of all time, Akira Kurosawa. It tells the tale of seven samurai, of course, protecting a village from some bandits. That's really it, but the film is great. It shows them planning out how they will defeat the bandits. There's some casualties, there's some losses. The film isn't too complex. I mean, if you look into it a lot, yes, it is, but like Akira Kurosawa shows everything that he's great at in this film. We all know Kurosawa is we all know Kurosawa. He is fantastic director. His filmmaking style is so unique, so masterful, and this is his magnum opus that displays everything great about not only his filmmaking, but Japanese filmmaking as a whole. Don't be surprised that it's so high on this list. Anyways, let's move on to number 14. At number 14 is 1957's 12 Angry Men. Now, if I told you that there was a film that's just about 12 angry men in a courtroom trying to discuss the outcome of it's basically a court drama. It's a bottle film. It's literally the entire film is set in one room with 12 men bickering, and 12 angry men in a courtroom, and the entire film is just them trying to decide on the outcome of a court case. Basically, you may think that that'd be boring, but no, this film is anything but. It's about 12 angry men in a courtroom. You'd think that's boring. But no, it's fantastic. It's phenomenal. It is the characters, the dialogue, it manages to make a film set in one room with only a few characters be so engaging, so masterfully put together. It's a classic. It's one of the best black and white movies. What can I say? It's 12 Angry Men. You probably know that this is among some of the greatest, like Citizen Kane, Psycho, Casablanca. We'll get to those ones because you know that those ones are going to be on this list. I didn't even need to tell you that, guys, that. But yeah, it's fantastic. What can I say? Let's move on to number 13 then, shall we? At number 13 is more of an obscure movie, but one I cannot describe in words. It is Stalker. Andrei Tarkovsky, I don't know how he did it, but he managed to make a film that is so great that I cannot describe it in words. Like, it's only number 13 on this list, so it's going to get even better from here, but Stalker is one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever made, and it's not even close. You can't describe it predicted Chernobyl, and it inspired the Stalker video game series, one of the most iconic post-apocalyptic game series. Recently got a sequel, which was good but pretty buggy, like Fallout New Vegas. But anyways, Stalker, how do I describe this film? Well, you gotta watch it, because I don't have words to describe this film. How do I... Now, unlike other films on this list, I actually don't really like this movie, but critically it's fantastic. Again, I'm trying to be as objective as possible, because